Hello, and welcome to the Behavior Education Connection, the podcast that works to connect the world of behavior analysis and the world of education. We focus on topics important to behavior analysts who work in the public schools and those who support them. Join us and spend time gaining insights and ideas as our host talks with fellow behavior analysts as well as other experts in the field.
Hello again, and welcome to the Behavior Education Connection. I'm your host, Dr. Selena Layden, and I am joined today by Noelle Woolard. Hi, Noelle.
Hi, Selena. Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm so glad to have you back. Can you just give us a brief intro about you real quick?
Sure. My name is Noelle Woolard, and I'm a Technical Assistance Associate with the Autism Center for Excellence at VCU.
So today we are talking about early childhood and some of the uniqueness of that age group and how BCBAs fit into that model. So I know that you've been working with preschool children for a while. So tell me a little bit, as someone who has worked with preschool teams and who is a BCBA in Virginia, what have you learned? What are some takeaways that you want to share with us?
Certainly. So I have been working with preschool teams in Virginia for about 20 years. It's kind of hard to believe it's been that long. And I've learned quite a bit. But one of the things that I've learned is that, as we work with early childhood special education teachers, we may find that some of them have experience working with students with disabilities and some may not. We also find that some may or may not have experiences or knowledge in assessing or developing communication systems for students with disabilities who may be nonverbal or may have some communication difficulties. We also find that some of the teachers and teams that we interact with may or may not have strategies to assess and manage challenging behaviors that interfere with student learning. Some of our teachers really are good at understanding how to implement or create naturalistic learning opportunities for our students that are embedded throughout the day. But some of our teachers are kind of new at that, and they're still kind of learning effective ways to do that. So, one of the things that I know is that all of those aspects, all of those different components that I just kind of mentioned are really important to a well-rounded and holistic early childhood special education learning environment. So kind of what I found is that as a behavior analyst, it's really my job to meet these teachers and these teaching teams where they are currently and kind of work with them on the areas that they want to kind of make growth or the areas that they kind of need to maybe work on a little bit more to help our students make some of the progress that they need. And so we would really look at helping them understand how to assess student behaviors and really individualize instruction that is matched to their preschool age students, their group of students, or individual students, depending on the case. So it's really an opportunity for us to really to work with them to kind of get them to a level where they're able to support students as best they can.
Well, and certainly, working with preschool children is not always easy. And
It's
so,
not.
if people are choosing that, that's what they certainly are passionate about, is what I have found. But you're right in that sometimes I've worked with some excellent preschool teachers, but sometimes I feel like, especially with our kids who may have more significant behavioral challenges or communication challenges, that can be really tricky for them at times.
This is true. This is very true. And I think kind of being a former teacher, I remember how stressful certain situations were, especially when I had a student that I wasn't maybe not really necessarily sure what the function of the behavior might have been, or I was really struggling to kind of put an appropriate functional communication system in place. And so I kind of remember how I felt as a teacher, and I try to put myself in the same shoes as those teachers because they're trying to balance an awful lot of things in the moment. And trying to do the best they can for all the students in their classroom.
Absolutely. One of the things that I think is interesting is there are some unique differences between early childhood education or preschool and K-12 education. And that's where I think sometimes BCBAs can get I don't know, kind of sideswiped almost, like especially if they've really been solely in K-12 education. So what are some of those differences that you've seen that you think BCBAs really should be aware of?
So you are definitely right, Selena. There are differences. There are similarities as well, but let's just kind of focus on those differences. So the first difference that I kind of have found is that from the perspective of being a teacher and also a BCBA is that our preschool and our early childhood classroom settings, we shouldn't be thinking of those as purely academic learning settings. So academics are certainly important, and there's definitely a place for academics in early childhood settings, but academics should not necessarily be the entire focus. So when we're thinking about learners that are 2, 3, or 4 years of age, we really should be thinking about helping them learn how to communicate and socialize with others. So we're going to be working on teaching them play skills that allow them to learn incidentally, in that preschool setting, but then also be able to generalize that skill to other environments. So we need to kind of work with teachers to really craft early childhood experiences that will allow our students to learn skills, necessary skills for learning in a child-friendly, but also in kind of what I call a teacher-engineered kind of classroom. So we're really planning for those opportunities for instruction in social and communication behavior, and then also academics as well. So secondly, another difference that I've kind of found between preschool and school age settings that BCBA should certainly be aware of is that for young learners, we really need to maybe alter or modify our expectations. A student that's 2, 3, or 4 years old is going to have a much shorter attention span developmentally than a student who is 5, 6, or 7 years old. So as behavior analysts working with preschool teams, we probably should spend some time kind of talking about the length of time or the duration that our students are engaged in direct instruction, or our calendar time, our morning meetings, or maybe our small group instruction, and really make sure that we are crafting kinds of lessons that are really matched to our developmental needs of our students, and then also build upon the duration that we're kind of expecting or working with students to kind of build up to. So we start kind of small, we meet them where they are, and then we help teams develop plans so that we can actually increase their attention span and kind of get them ready for kindergarten or learning experiences beyond that.
Yeah, I'm going to jump in for 1 second because I think you make a really important point about the difference between preschool and K-12, but there's also, so if you're not in Virginia, we service 2-year-olds as part of our preschool population. And there is a big difference between a new 2-year-old and an almost 5-year-old, huge difference. And so even planning within the preschool framework is, it's important to remember the differences in those ages because a lot of change happens for every child between 2 and 3 and 3 and 4 and 4 and 5.
You're so right. And that actually leads me to my third point, which is the third difference that I kind of think about between preschool and school age is that, for all these little 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds coming into school, this may be the first big transition that they've ever experienced in their life. And they may never have had kind of a reason for them to have a schedule during the day or have a routine during the day. So we really need to kind of think about what a typical 2-year-old's routine is for washing hands, and maybe think about maybe paring it down, or think about the routine for them to kind of get dressed in the morning, or kind of put their shoes on in the afternoon, or put their coat on, and determine different supports and different ways that we can help them to learn to be independent, but not expect independence from the get-go.
Yeah, those are some really great points. And I think part of our job as BCBAs, as educators, is to meet children where they are and take them as far as we can. But, in preschool, I think one of the differences that I see too, and you touched on this a little bit, is there's such a developmental focus, right? It's not a set framework curriculum, right? Like in Virginia, we have the SOLs, other states have Common Core, whatever the curriculum might be. In preschool, it's not like, okay, today we're working on objective 1.34, and this is what we have to get through. It is very play-based. It's very, and should be very play-based. It is very developmental in the way that it works. And so one of the big things that I see that BCBAs I think need to be aware of is you may have to think about how your intervention fits in the context of that classroom, because that classroom is not your typical third grade classroom.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. The last point that I kind of want to make regarding some of the differences between preschool and K-12 in terms of the lens that we might look at things through for BCBAs and preschool teachers is that families have a huge part, a big part in the preschool team makeup. So families know the most about their students. They've spent the majority of the time with their students. They know a lot more about these little guys than the teachers do, and they can provide us with an awful lot of information. So they can let us know what students are kind of struggling with at home or what they do really well at home with. And we can use that information to really craft some goals that can be embedded into our instruction throughout the day. And we can also find out those things that are motivating to our kids, and we can also use those as tools to encourage our students to be more independent and more successful throughout the day.
So one of the things that we started to touch on, but I'd like you to talk a little bit more about, is there's a lot of different frameworks, curricula that preschool might follow. Certainly there is in Virginia. I think this is probably true relatively so nationally. As a BCBA, it's really not our job to pick the curriculum that a preschool classroom uses, but how should a BCBA address those differences in the models or the curricula that we see?
Sure. So in Virginia, you're right that schools definitely have an option, or teams definitely have an option as to the curricula that they choose to use. And the only thing that I really look at with the curriculum is to make sure that it's evidence-based. I want to make sure that the curriculum that they're using has a nice scope and sequence. It has a nice assessment tool and a progress monitoring tool that might be built into it so that teams can really assess whether students are making progress. So that's one piece about the curriculum. That's one thing that I would certainly want to see as a BCBA. But I really find that my job is more important in determining the supports that should be surrounding the students in the classroom environment in order for them to actually make success or have success with the curriculum that's being used. So teaching teachers how to break down skills into small teachable components, or teaching them how to use specific visual supports or visual cues that can help them be more successful, or helping them use motivation systems, or helping them identify reinforcers that can be used. I feel like as a behavior analyst, utilizing those evidence-based practices, teaching teachers how they can use them and embed them throughout their day is more important for my role as a behavior analyst than the curriculum that they may be using.
So just for fun, I think there are a lot of behavior analysts that have worked with young children or have that experience in their practicum or their supervision. But why do you like working with little kids? Why do you like working with preschool teams?
Well, I love being in a classroom. First of all, I love working with teachers. I love kind of modeling a lot of those strategies and then seeing teachers actually be able to implement those strategies to fidelity. I think that's a lot of fun. When teachers are doing this, we see that students are making progress. And I love to be able to kind of visit a classroom and I can notice the changes that a student may have in terms of their communication or their behavior, their independence, just from, the strategies that a teacher has put in place. So I think that's a lot of fun and I enjoy that. But I also really enjoy helping teachers learn how to help students develop joint attention skills. So, for me, kind of helping a teacher set up situations where we can get a student to maybe initiate an interaction with another student that will bring that student into, their fold and have them kind of share an experience with that other student, I think is really cool. I also think it's really neat to see some of our students learn to respond to the initiations of other kids. So, I mean, that's really kind of where it is. We want kids to be successful in this preschool setting, but then carry those skills to other settings as well and be social and be able to share materials and be able to engage in parallel playing and all of that. I also really enjoy watching teachers create systematic learning opportunities. So I often find that I work with teams and I give them some suggestions and I give them some ideas of how they can create some systematic learning opportunities for kids. And then oftentimes I come back in and I find that they have really they've really adapted, they've really changed, they've really modified and enhanced some of the suggestions that I've had, and they've come up with some really creative ways to get kids to learn in the natural setting. And I think that's great because we're embedding instruction within the day, but then we're also promoting for generalization if we're thinking about teaching in that natural environment. So I think it's just a lot of fun watching teachers and students grow in their skill sets, and then just knowing that all of this is setting our students up to be more successful in the future.
Yeah, one of the things I really love about the preschool age, I think, is just that capacity to learn because they're so little and they've only had so many experiences. I mean, even no matter who the 3 or 4-year-old is, there's only so many experiences you've had by 3. And so just the capacity to learn. And so sometimes I think you can see a lot of gains really quickly, which for me personally is just really reinforcing. So
Absolutely.
So Noelle, I really, as always, appreciate talking to you. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with us before we end today?
Sure. As I was kind of preparing for this podcast, I was thinking about the perspective that we have as BCBAs in terms of looking at a student and then kind of thinking about their full continuum of life or full continuum of their educational experiences. And I feel that we can use this knowledge and we can help our preschool teachers and our preschool teams kind of see things about like what life might look like past preschool, So I know preschool teachers are really focusing on students making progress in this preschool setting, but preschool setting is just the beginning for these kids. So as a behavior analyst, we know where things are kind of moving. We know where areas where students need to be most independent and where they need to be successful. And so we can kind of, outline this for our teachers so that they can kind of know where their kids are going and use that information to prepare our students, to potentially have a better quality of life as they move forward in their life.
Well, Noelle, thank you. Great points, great conversation today. So I really do appreciate you spending some time with me. For our listeners, I hope you enjoyed this episode and we'll see you on our next episode.
Thank you so much, Selena.
Thanks.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Behavior Education Connection. Join us next time for another great conversation about behavior analysis in the schools. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on an episode. Sending out a special thanks to the Virginia Department of Education for supporting our work. We look forward to connecting with you all again soon.